Good morning. This is your Stats Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is Death Packet Unit 2 of Displaying and Describing Data, problems 81 to 80. The travel miles claimed in weekly expense reports of the sales personnel at a corporation are summarized in the following box plots. Which of the following is the most reasonable conclusion? The mean and median numbers are roughly equal. No, this is skewed to the left. The mean is going to be way down here. That's false. The mean and the number of travel miles is greater than the median. No, the mean is going to be less because it's skewed to the left. Most of the claimed numbers of miles are in the 10 to 200 interval. No, that's not true. That's less than 50% because 50% of the data are between, always go to the median. So since it didn't include the median, it can't be 50%. That's false. Most of the claim numbers are between the 200 and 240. Ooh, 200 all the way up to the highest value. That looks pretty good to me. Let's check E. The left and right whiskers contain the same number of values from this. They would normally contain the same number because 25% is here and 25% is here, but the whisker did not include these outliers, so that's why that one's false. If there are no outliers, yes, this would have been true, but the 25% includes the outliers. 82. Dietitians are concerned about sugar consumption in teenagers' diets. A 12-ounce can of soft drink typically has 10 teaspoons of sugar. In a random sample of 55 students, the number of teaspoons of sugar consumed for each student on a randomly selected day is tabulated. Here are the summary statistics. Which of the following is true? Oh, they're asking about outliers. So now I need to calculate my outliers. To do that, I need to calculate my IQR. And remember, IQR equals Q3 minus Q1. So 38 minus 25 equals 13. So we have an IQR of 13. To be an outlier, X has to be less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. So let's check that out. We have 25 minus 1.5 times 13. So I need a value less than 5.5. Well, my minimum is 10, so there's no outliers on the low side. So I need to check the high side. X has to be greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Q3 is at 38. And 38 plus 1.5 times 13 is 57.5. And in this case, we see we have a maximum value of 60. 60 is an outlier, and we could have a 58, we could have a 59, we could have multiple 60s. So in this case, the value of 60 is an outlier, and there might be other outliers on the high side, but there are none on the low side. So our answer choice for 82 is E. 83. Consider the two sets, X equals this and Y equals that. Which of the following is false? So I've taken those and I've input them into the calculator, and I go stat edit, and so there they are. I've input them into the calculator. I go stat calc one variable statistics for the X one, and I find that it has a median of 50. I do the same thing for the Y one, and it also has a median. So they have identical medians. This is a true statement, and it's asking for false. If I go to stat calc and I do L2, I find that it has an X bar of 50. And this one has a X bar of 50. So both have the same means. The range. Well, 10 minus 90 is 80. 10 minus 90 is 80. And by the way, I look at them, okay? So they both have the same range. Now I check the box plot. Second stat plot, turn it on. Oops. Stat plot on. Zoom 9, there's one of them. Go back up there. I'm gonna turn the other one on. Select the box plot. And that's L2. Zoom 9. Hey, I have identical box plots. The data aren't exact. Notice the data aren't exactly the same, but I do have identical box plots. So none of these are false answers. A medical researcher studying the effective durations of 3 over-the-counter pain relievers obtains the following box plots from 3 equal size groups of patients. Okay, so we have equal size groups. That's important. Which of the following is a correct statement with regard to comparing the effective durations? All right. All 3 have the same interquartile range. No, the IQRs appear to be different. Remember, these are the IQRs. This one has the smallest IQR. This one appears to have the largest IQR, just eyeballing it. All right, so they don't have the same 3, so that's false. More patients had over 210 minutes of pain relief in the I group, in the first group. So more than in the other 2 groups. Well, yeah, that's 50%. So that's true. They had more, that group had more than 50%. So that's a true statement. Consider the set of scores of all students taking the AP statistics exam. What is true about the variance of the set? Given a box plot of the distribution, if the whiskers are equal, the variances will equal the interquartile range. I'm not sure where that came from, but that's not true. If the distribution of scores is bell-shaped, the variance will be between -3 and 3. No. If there are a few high scores with the bulk of the scores less than the mean, the variance will be skewed to the right. Variance isn't skewed to the right. The distribution is skewed to the right. If the or it may be skewed, and it'd be skewed, it would be skewed to the right, but the distribution, not the variance. If the distribution is symmetric, the variance will equal the standard deviation. No, because the variance is the standard deviation squared, so they're not going to be equal unless it's 1. If the variance is the sum of variances coming from a variety of the variance is the sum of variances coming from a variety of factors. This is a true statement. The variance is the sum of all the variances. All right, the variance is the sum of all the variances, assuming they're independent. If quartiles Q1 equals 50 and Q3 equals 70, which of the following must be true? Well, the median is 60. That's a tricky statement because basically there's trying to say, hey, if this is 50 and this is a 70, the median should be in between. Well, it is in between, but it could be way down here or way up there or right in the middle. So that's not necessarily true. The mean is between 50 and 70. Well, the median is, but what if we have a long tail? Then the mean would be up here. If you're in a long tail the other way, then the mean would be below. So we don't know anything about the mean. The standard deviation is at most 20. We don't have a clue because we don't know what how big the tails are. The range must be greater than 20. This is crazy, but just consider this. What if all my scores were either 50? I had 4 50s and I had 4 70s. Well, what would my box plot look like then? It wouldn't have any tails. All right, it wouldn't have any tails. So the range doesn't necessarily have to be greater than 20. All right, tricky, tricky, tricky. I would expect most people to choose D by mistake. All right, because it's possible that you don't have tails on a box plot. So letter E is the answer choice for that. 87. What is the interquartile range? Well, remember, interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, and Q3 is 75%, and Q1 is 25%. So if I go across and down, looks like my Q1 is about at 1.8. I go to 75% and down, it looks like that's 3. So 3 minus 1.8 equals 1.2. Best answer. Given the above cumulative frequency plot, what can be said about the value of the mean? Well, I really don't know a whole lot about the mean, so let's look at the median. Okay. So in this case, if I were looking at this and then I drew a graph, I'd go, well, my lowest value is 20, my highest value is 80, and we got, and this is at 10, this is 20, 30, etc. 50% of my scores are over here, and I have very few here. So in this case, it looks like my data would be skewed to the right. All right. And if it's skewed to the right and my median is going to be at 20 and it's skewed to the right, then my mean has to be greater than 20 because my median is here at 50. When we know that based on this, then we go, oh, it's skewed to the right. So my mean is definitely going to be above there. 89. The graph below shows the cumulative proportions plotted against land values in dollars per acre for farms on sale in a rural community. Okay. What is the median value? Well, the median value is at 50%, which is right here at 50%. And I drop down. So my best answer choice should be A. All right, number 90. An AP statistics teacher grades using z-scores on the second major exam marking period. Students receive a grade with a z-score of -1.3. What is the correct interpretation of that grade? Well, what that means is they are 1.3 standard deviations below the average. All right, they're 1.3 standard deviations below the average. So the student's grade went down by 1.3 from the first exam. No, we didn't know anything about the first exam. They may have done horrible on the first, or they may have done great. Students went down 1.3 more than the average grade went down for the first exam. No, we're not talking about them going down. We just said that they scored below. The student scored 1.3 standard deviations lower on the second than on the first. Again, we don't know anything about the first. The student scored 1.3 standard deviations lower on the second exam than the class average on the first exam. No, again, we don't know anything about that first exam. The student scored 1.3 standard deviations on the second exam lower on the second exam than the class average on the second exam. So that is the answer. We really haven't talked about z-scores in this unit. We will later. But they scored 1.3 standard deviations lower than the class average on that same test. Given the cumulative plot above and using the most commonly accepted definition of outliers, what ages would be considered outliers? Well, I need to find Q3. I need to find my IQR, and IQR is Q3 minus Q1. Well, Q1 is at 25%, that's 40. So it's going to be a minus 40. And Q3 is at 75%, and that's at 50. So 50 minus 40. So we have an IQR equal to 10. All right, so if X is less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR, it's an outlier. So our Q1 we said was 40, so 40 minus 1.5 times 10. So on the calculator, 40 minus 1.5 times 10 is 25. So if we have an X value less than 25, so between 20 and 25, that's for sure. All right, so that gets rid of this. Now let's do the high side. Q3, if X is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Well, Q3 in this case was 50. So 50 plus 1.5 times 10. Is 65. So X greater than 65. All right. So in this case, we don't have anything greater than 65 listed, and we don't show it on the graph. We're at 100% at 60. So we don't have anything on the high side. We only have it on the low side. So anything between 20 and 25 would be an outlier. All right. And I went one beyond what I was supposed to. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.